Good morning. Today is Sunday, the 28th day of Cheshvan. And yesterday, we started the fifth part of the Tanya, the Kuntres Acharon. And the Kuntres Acharon, the fifth part, this is the Alter Rebbe. When he wrote the Tanya, he wrote amendments. He wrote comments on the different parts. Some are very deep comments, very deep. Some contradictions that seems to be contradictions that Alter Rebbe explains from different parts in the Zohar, from the Harizal, and so on. So these parts of the Tanya talks about some of the parts talks about deep concepts in Chassidus, and we will try to explain as much as possible because those are very fundamental subjects in Chassidus. And so in order to understand today's class, I want to give a few introductions, a few points. Some of it we already discussed in the previous part of the Tanya, but we will review it so we can understand it properly. So introduction number one is the understanding of the 10 spheres. What is the 10 spheres? You have the 10 attributes, the way Hashem, the system of this world, the way Hashem brings the flow of his energy goes through the 10 attributes, and the 10 attributes are divided in one division, at least, they're divided into three. You have the intellectual part, and you have the emotions, the midos, the chesed, the gvura, the kindness, the judgment, and you have the last one is malchus. Malchus is kingdom. The part of Malchus, it says, Leisla migarmei klum. Malchus doesn't have anything on its own. The Malchus is what receives from the intellect, from the emotional parts, and it gives. That means it creates the next world. This is the Malchus. That's the function of the Malchus. We say, Friday before Shabbos, we say from the Zohar, we say Malchus Peh. Malchus is compared to the mouth. What is the mouth when you speak? What do you speak? If you speak words of wisdom, you deliver words of wisdom. You deliver wisdom through the mouth. If you speak emotions, then you deliver emotions. So the Malchus is compared to the mouth, the Peh. But if you talk nonsense, then it's nonsense and it's nothing. So this, he says, is the idea of the 10 spheres, and this is the function of the Malchus. Now, that's introduction number two. Point number two is whenever you travel, it says all ways are endangered. Wherever you travel, there's always danger. You have to be careful. What that means is that when the flow of energy that comes from Hashem, from God, come down to this world, of course, the intention is that it should go to the right place. However, on the way, traveling to this world, it can be, there are parasites who try to nourish from that energy. God created in the world, he created the forces of good, and he created also the forces of the opposite of good. And how are they existing? They're nourishing from the good. But we have to try to make they shouldn't get more than the minimum that they need to have to exist, because when the flow goes down, they are able to nourish from the good also. You see, once in the British Parliament, there was a discussion. They were saying they're giving a certain amount of money, and the money disappears. And they see where is the money disappear? And then one parliament member says, "I'm going to explain you exactly where the money disappears." And it says, "But in order to do that, he sent the guy. He said, go bring me a piece of ice from the freezer." He brings him a piece of ice, and he says, "Take the ice," and he starts passing it around the table. So each would take the ice, put it to the next one, and pass it around the table. By the time it came to him, back to him, there was no ice. So it says that's how the money disappears. So when you have the flourishing that from Hashem, you need to make sure that the chitzonim, the other side, not the good side, they are like thorns. When you have a field, beautiful flowers grow and beautiful bushes grow, but then you have the thorns that grow. The thorns that grow, they take away from the nourishment that we need for the flowers, and they take it away. If we don't remove the thorns, then the good things will not be able to grow properly because they take away the nourishment. So we need to remove, we need to remove those thorns. This is the point number 2. Point number 3, we have also the concept which is called Yichud Panim Bepanim. Panim Bepanim means a unification of face to face. Unification of face to face means that whenever everything you're connected in an internal way, and what I give to you, you receive in the proper way. You root that there is a yichud achor b'achor, back to back. It means that they're together, but it doesn't go in the right places. When the other side receives, it's because there is achor, unification of back to back. When there's a face-to-face unification, then there is a direct connection between the giver and the receiver, and everything goes directly to the right place. And point number 4 also, what we learned also in the past, we have the idea that in order for the giver to give, you need to make an arousal from below. It's called Mayim Nukvim and Mayim Dechurim. The feminine waters arouses and triggers the masculine waters. Imagine a person who is a very wealthy person and he has a lot of money. But in order for him to give money, he needs to have something that should excite him that he would want to give the money. If he feels there is a reason, if you tell him about people have no food in the house, it wakes him up something and you give him. So we need something to trigger, that's called the Mayim Nukvim, the feminine waters, that we trigger the Mayim Dechurim, the masculine waters, to give. Just like it says in the creation of the world, when Hashem created the world, it says in the beginning there was no rain. That's what it says in the Torah. V'adam ayin laved es Adama. Because there was no man to work the field. So what Rashi explains, what does that mean? There was no man to ask for rain, to pray for rain. Once the man came and he prayed for rain, this is when it triggers and the rain came down. So after these introductions, let's try to understand the deep teachings of today's Tanya as much as we can. So let's look inside. Says the Alter Rebbe, Ein Eitz Chaim, look in the book Eitz Chaim, Shar HaNekudah, Shar Ches Perek Vov. It says over there in Eitz Chaim, She'ein hachazoras ponim beponim, ki im al yedei mitzvahs ma'asiyos davke. What we just explained, that the turning face to face, what does it mean, turning face to face? We explained face to face means that is direct connection between the receiver and the giver, between Hashem and us. In order to have the turning face to face, the only way to do it, says the Eitz Chaim, is only through mitzvahs that require action. When you do the mitzvahs, that actual mitzvahs that involves action, this is what brings about the face-to-face connection with the godly energy. And explains, what is the reason? The reason given, he says, Ki al yedei maisim toivim goyrem zivug elyon. Because by means of the good deeds, one brings about the supernal union. We said before, when you have the union of Malchus and Zah, which means Malchus, the kingdom that brings down, doesn't have nothing on its own. Only it has to be united with the Zah, with the emotional attributes, and then it is able to bring down. That is the action causes this union. Says the Alter Rebbe in my ma'asiyos davke. So we need to understand why only mitzvahs that involve action cause this union. Says Yuvan mimasha kosuv b'shar man umad. This will be understood in light of what is written in Eitz Chaim, the shar man and mad. Like we said before, man is maim nukvim, feminine waters, maim duchrim, the masculine waters. So there he explains, Kitzorich techilo lehalois man de nukva de zah. He explains that first, before you have the supernal union, you must elevate maim nukvim, arousal that is initiated by the recipient, and from that is connected to Zah. This is from Zah, and that should be connected to Malchus. Uman de nukva hein pchinas asiya k'beshekosuf shom perik aleph. Now he says, what is the man of nukva? This is action, as it explains there. He says why. V'ine amaysim toivim nikroim kisuach v'kitzutz hakoitzim anechozim ba'achorayim. The action, the good action, this is called the kisuach, like you could take a gardener and chops off the thorns. So this is described as trimming. The kisuach hakoitzim, hacking off the thorns, anechozim ba'achorayim, that they cleave, they attach themselves to the back part, Shem B'chinas Asiyah, which is in action. Why is that? Why is it in action? Because the action that we do is the lowest part. And action can be used easily in a negative way. And when you do the action, you have to make sure constantly to fight to make sure that your action should only be a positive action. Whatever you do, you eat, you drink, you talk, you do anything you do, the action that you do is constantly a fight to make sure that the action should be for the positive cause. So he says, as it says in Eitz Chaim, gate 47, chapter 5, so this is, the purging is affected by elevating the elements of good that is concealed in them. In every action there is an element of good. And where is it concealed? In the mitzvahs ma'asiyos, in the mitzvahs that of action. Where do you elevate it? Limekoira to its source, lekedusha, so atzilus shekvar uvrera. You elevate it to the source, which is the sanctity of atzilus. Atzilus is the highest world. Shekvar uvrera, there it's already been refined. So that is why what it says, so when a person does action, then when a person does the action, what happens is that the action that you do brings out the good, and the good that is being elevated to the higher world, and that triggers the union which happens above, which brings about the energy down below. Now the Alter Rebbe says, however, it seems like it says something which contradicts what we just said. So he says, "Mashe kosuf sham she'adam arishan tiken gamken al yedei tefillah." Over there in the Eitz Chaim, it says that Adam Rishon was able to rectify not only through action but also through prayer. So it seems like contradicting with what we just said, that only through action you're able to rectify and to elevate the energy down to the higher level. So he says, says the Alter Rebbe, because the prayer also involves action, because the words, when you move your lips, is considered action. Because the utterance, when you utter words, you need energy for that. If you're exhausted, you can't speak. You need energy to be able to speak and to be able to move your lips and to be able to do so. They derive their vivifying soul, which is one's body and blood. And the root of the body is from klipas noiga, from that shell which is potentially able to be elevated. There are certain shells that are considered the lowest impurity that we cannot elevate. This is only, we deal with them by denying them. Anything which is forbidden in the Torah, like non-kosher food, like all those things, is something we cannot elevate the non-kosher food, say, okay, I'm going to eat it to have strength to study Torah. No, this is trapped with the evil. So the only way to deal with this is by denying it. But anything else, anything which is neutral, we have the ability to elevate it. The elevating the world of Asiya, the refining the world of Asiya, comes up to the higher world, which is the world of Yetzirah, through the name Ban. Ban is 52, which is one of the combinations of the Hashem's name, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. There's different ways that comes up with different numerical values, and that represents the energy of the Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, which goes to the lowest part. Ban is also the gematria of Behemoth, which represents the animal soul. So this name of Hashem, which is the name Ban, the 52, helps us to elevate the action to the higher world. And then Umi Yetzira leBriya, and from the world of Yetzira to the higher world Briya, Ula Atzilus, and to the highest world Atzilus, Kemeshekasu b'Sharman, the Rushidal of Simen Zayin, as it says there in the Eitz Chaim. And this we will understand the hero loy avid midden. Thereby we understand that only thoughts, if only using your thoughts to meditate about positive things, that doesn't do any good if you don't involve action. The mitzvahs has to involve the action. Because without bringing up, elevating the mind nukvim, from the Melachim, the kings of Noiga, we cannot draw forth the drops for the zivug zun, for this union of the male and female, the za and nukva. Why? Because this zo, the zeir anpin, the emotional part of the attributes, they would rather receive from their mother. What is their mother? The mother of the emotional attribute is Bina. Rather than giving to Malchus, they would rather connect and receive more from their source, from their mother. כמו שכתוב בשער מן דרוש בייז, ועין בזויה, פרשס פקודי, and it says look in the Zoya, portion of Pkudei, דף רש בייז, דף רש מ"ד עמוד בייז, the Isidura leistakol. Now, the Alter Rebbe brings, it seems like in the Zoya, it seems like it says something contradicting to what we just said. We just said that the thoughts alone is not doing anything. You need to have the action. But there in the Zoya, in Parshas Pekudei there, it says that there are two, it says over there that there are different modes, there are different sets. There is a mode of speaking words, and then there's a mode of gazing, meditating. Vehein kavones atfilos veyichudim elyonim leyodim umasigim listakola. So Alter Rebbe says that this is an exception to the rule. There are certain tzaddikim who are able to accomplish things through their meditations. For example, like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, when he was 13 years, he couldn't do any mitzvahs. He couldn't have matzah and Passover. He couldn't have a sukkah. Couldn't have a lulav. He couldn't have a lot of mitzvahs. He couldn't do. So didn't he do the mitzvahs? So it says that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai did it with a kavana, he did the spiritual things, what is accomplished through the mitzvahs. So those are special tzaddikim that are able to do it. Ki nefesh ruach neshama shalem atzman ein man, because their nefesh ruach neshama themselves, they constitute the arousal that initiated by the recipient. So they are accomplishing this concept of the arousal by themselves. Why? B'mesiras nefesh ala Torah, through their self-sacrificing devotion for the Torah, u'benefilas apayim kan loida, and during also the Tachnun prayer that they say, Eilecha Hashem nafsi esa, that they turn their soul to Hashem as is known. So this is the end of today's shir. So again, this is something, deep concept. We're trying to bring it down as much as possible. And Bezrat Hashem will continue tomorrow. All the best. If there are any questions, we can discuss it now.